All right, let me call City Council meeting to order, 7 o'clock, Tuesday, February 25th. All members of council are present and accountable. One is in a different setting than usual. That's well accepted, given her limitations. So I'm going to ask everybody to stand for an invocation and pledge allegiance.
O Heavenly Father, we gather this evening to serve the city in your name. We strive to do your will in everything we do. Thank you for allowing us to nurture our minds and our bodies while we live within your hands on this beautiful island. We are truly blessed as we emerge from our cold winter season. May the spring bring us closer to you. And again, I ask that you please keep safe all those that keep us safe. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Marie, how about you? We're ready, huh?
Councilmember Bergworth, here. Councilmember Vitelli. Here. Councilmember Buchanan.
Present.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Councilmember Perez.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Walkus.
Here.
Councilmember Ward.
Here.
Mayor Cronin.
Present.
Administrator Tucker.
Here.
And Attorney Halverson. Here.
Very good. Let's move on. Reading of journal of previous meeting minutes. You have minutes from, I'm looking at different dates here. Council. Special meeting of February 18th and the regular meeting date of
Yeah, we
The
did we
regular
move
meeting
it
was the 28th, and we held it on the 3rd because of the snow.
right.
No,
So
thank you.
that needs to be a correction.
I knew somebody would have the answer.
Yeah.
So you have in your packet the meeting minutes of the 30th and the special meeting of the 18th. You have a motion to approve or amend?
Second.
Move to approve. Any discussions, additions, deletions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
So you've forgotten about the snow already?
Oh. Yes. Somebody said it was going to snow up north, I think even tomorrow. I told them, take a picture or put some in a box and ship it to me. That's as close as I want to get. All right, citizens' comments. Any citizens wish to address council at this time? Okay. All right, none heard. We'll move on to reports from standing committees. I'll report on the Ways and Means Committee meeting. We met at 5:45 on the 18th. We had one citizen, Jim Rye, made a comment dealing with an upcoming item on our agenda, which had to do with consideration of increasing the meter parking rates. We'll mention that here shortly. We heard from our treasurer through January, which is 58% of the year complete. We are 50% collected on our revenues against our budget, and our expenditures are running at 53%. The expenditures are running similar to what they had done prior year relative to percent of budget, and revenues are slightly off. We're running at 95% of where we were last year, but we have received more property tax than what we have received so far this year. But since the end of January, we have received additional property tax income. So our treasurer is not worried at this point, but we're monitoring every penny as it flows through. Our local option sales tax revenue has come in ahead of our budgeted revenues, so that's good news for the citizens, since we actually passed local option sales tax funds ultimately back to the citizens as a credit on property taxes. In our tourism schedules, our municipal accommodations tax is now running 8% higher than prior year. Another good point. And we did receive the Charleston County accommodations tax pass through, whatever term you want to use. They tend to render a portion of what they receive in accommodations tax back to the municipalities. We received $197,000, which is 10% higher than what we received the prior year. Another good note. And our hospitality tax is also running at 8% greater than the FY13 period. So all those revenue streams are in good order. There was virtually nothing of note in the project status reports. We moved on to old business. The first item was a report on our meeting with the Department of Revenue. We met with the Department of Revenue, the treasurer, city administrator, myself, along with a crowd of others, all the way from Aiken through Horry County, North Myrtle Beach, I think, was represented, et cetera. There was a room full of folks. Director Bill Bloom was there from the Department of Revenue, and they went through an explanation of how they're going to be changing their administrative process on the collection of state accommodations tax, the posting of those receipts, and then the redistribution of those that they're required to do through the treasurer's office to the municipalities involved. The reason that's important is because the system has been flawed. Is that being kind? And all the revenue hasn't flown back to the appropriate jurisdictions, and in fact, in some cases, in communities outside of our island at least, because we had a disciplined process for a number of years, a lot of people have not been paying the appropriate accommodations tax, but they've paid a lot of attention to it and have added, I think, 900, some number like 960 new payers as a result of audits and diligent pursuits of vacation rental by owners and other properties like that, where people had just ignored their obligation to pay taxes to the state and local municipalities. So they're moving ahead. It's still a labyrinth that you have to go through, and they're going to be changing part of that and making it an online process completely. It's only partly online now. Until it's online, it's still going to be difficult for them to administer. In the meantime, we're talking about holding a forum here in City Hall for the property management businesses on the island to help them understand how the reporting should go, because there's a lot of misunderstanding all the way through the system, and we want to make sure that our property management companies know the proper disciplines, some of which has changed within the Department of Revenue. So if we can facilitate that, it would benefit all of us. So that is yet to be scheduled, but I suspect we'll do that shortly. We moved on to talk about negotiations with the architectural firms for the public restrooms. We received 3 proposals to our request for quote proposals from architectural firms, and the discussion centered around entering into a negotiation with Leolio, and the discussion, and that has entered into, and the first item formally of our business is to an award a contract for the amount of $11,765 from our municipality ATAX funds to provide Front Beach professional services from Leolio for the phase 1 of the restrooms, which is really to identify our options as far as locating and evaluating the various sites that we have. And the intention would be to recover those funds ultimately from the Charleston County, whose citizens are the ones that will benefit by our improving the restroom facility. So I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? None heard. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. We then moved on to a recommendation from the Real Property Committee, and that was to award a contract to Salmon's Dredging in the amount of $62,800 for the rehabilitation of the water sports dock with an aluminum gangway. This project was bid. This was a successful bidder. Has been reviewed, evaluated by our engineer, proposed to the Real Property Committee, and they've made the recommendation to Ways and Means, and the Ways and Means, we approved it, and so now here at Council, we have an award to make, and I'll make the motion to award the contract to Salmon's Dredging in the amount of $62,800. I have a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion on water sports rehabilitation work? None heard. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. We went on to consider from Public Safety Committee consideration of hiring 3 additional firefighters for Station 2. to be included with $44,400 to be expensed in this year's budget, such that we can get these personnel on board so that we can have them effective during the summer season. Those funds would come from the expected municipal tax, ATAX revenue that is exceeding our expectation presently. So I'll make that as a motion to hire 3 additional firefighters for Station 2.
Second.
Motion seconded. Discussion? This was a long labor. Chief is with us. Ann is not with us, but the fire department has been well represented for the last series of months, making detailed presentations to council, to various committees of council, etc., for the need for this addition. And I want to thank you for the professional work that you put in response to our questions, and etc., in developing the need for this. And so, thank you and the rest of the team that helped you. So, no other questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No one heard? Motion carries. Thank you. We moved on to consideration from the Public Safety for approval of up to $14,000 to purchase 7 traffic counters. This is at the request of the Planning Commission, and we funded from municipal ATAX non-capital tools and equipment. I'll make that as a motion.
Second.
Seconded. These would replace the intermittent counters we have now. They haven't. They were intermittent only in the last year or two when they haven't been working properly. We need to have more accurate data to be able to understand what's happening on and off the island. This will give us lane counts as we go forward, which is most useful in deciding how we're going to move the island parking and traffic forward. So I'll make a motion to award up to $14,000.
Second.
And seconded. I'd like. Do we know who we're awarding it to?
I think that we do not know that at this time. We have selected the price based
Okay.
on a vendor, but we do not know the actual contract. But it may well be under the $10,000 threshold. Installation would just make up that difference.
Okay, very good. And we're going to apply to the DOT to get the encroachment to get that taken care of before we move on with a specific vendor. Okay. Motion and seconded. Any more discussion? Jimmy?
This is going to free up Chief Buchanan's time now, not having to work on the old ones anymore.
We'll find something else for him to do.
All right, duly noted. Time on his hands. I don't think so. All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We moved on to discuss and review the revenue projections for FY15 as we enter the budget process. Projections were made by staff and considered by council. We chose not to increase the parking meter rates, hourly rates at this time. If that becomes an option, we'll have to we'll incur the cost to reprogram the meters at that time and do it then. But we're taking no action on that now. There were other options put forward, but again, they're just for our information standpoint. And the staff will be moving into the next round of budget details dealing with capital and operating budgets for every committee. So stay tuned. All right, that's
Question.
yes, please.
Is there a follow-up to my phone call to the administrator after the next one after that meeting about the proposed bill in Columbia to not allow cities to charge credit card processing fees?
Okay.
I'm asking, is there a follow-up?
Oh, yeah.
I will update council on what we did. We immediately made an appeal to elected officials related to trying to do something about that bill, and actually provided a graphic depicting that it is not that the city of Isle of Palms is making money or is charging a fee that it keeps for the convenience of people using credit cards, that we are merely passing on the fee that is being charged to us. And so we were making an appeal that to allow this particular bill to pass would mean that then the taxpayers would have to absorb the expense of that fee if we continued to provide it. As a result of sending that information out, we were actually visited Representative Satilli. He came by and reviewed with us his advocacy in Columbia with his fellow elected officials. And basically what he indicated was that they were pretty dug in to wanting to change it on the basis of that the Department of Revenue does not charge. And I had a follow-up communication with Bill Bloom at the Department of Revenue, and he substantiated that the reason they do not charge is because it benefits them from the standpoint of getting revenue more quickly from their taxpayers, and so that expense is offset by not having to handle the transaction as much as the DOR would have to handle it if it were a check or a paper transaction or even a cash transaction. So he justified it that way. It was suggested to us, and I would encourage all of you to contact Merrill and Stavronauskas and express our displeasure. We also appealed to the Municipal Association for them to advocate on our behalf, and other local governments too, not just us, who are not benefiting by the fee but merely trying to cover the cost of offering the convenience of credit cards. So that's the status right now.
One more thing. Yeah, apparently this got in Leon's craw because he was charged a fee for using his credit card by Charleston County for some payment he made there. His argument is they're making money on these fees. We have contacted the county, have not received the feedback yet, to find out, if this is an accusation, they need to give us some ammunition. Are they just passing on a fee that they have to pay, or in fact, are they making money? I have no idea. But that's the origin of the irritation that has now triggered some proviso in the budget, which is very difficult to find. And frankly, the legislators say, for us to find that and work on it, it's not going to happen. However, we still have the Senate to work through.
Stop it at the Senate.
And I met with a senator yesterday, and I shared with him our frustration at this. And I said, I'm expecting you. It's not our senator, but I'm expecting you to help us, nip it in the bud, because it's a cost to us that we can't recover any other way. And anyhow, so that was a good catch. I'm glad you brought it in.
I just want to know what was going on, that's all.
Yeah, well, we'll try and keep you abreast, because it's not a dead issue, and just as we launch service for the citizens and the people that use our facilities, all of a sudden, the state decides to step on us.
Yeah, within months.
Mr. Mayor.
Please.
Bill Taylor with the Municipal Association, what was his opinion? This is not just all palms, it's everybody. So, did they...
I actually have not spoken to Bill Taylor about it. I communicated with Melissa Carter, who works with Bill, but Melissa is more on the legislative side. She is over at the State House, a good bit every day. So I went directly to her. And, they're certainly trying to support us in it. They are actually also reaching out to us concerning some other legislative issues that they're hoping that will help to stop that affect local governments as well.
Thank you.
What's interesting about this is those are same representatives who complain about the federal government trying to dictate what they can do at the state level, is in turn telling what we can do on a municipal level. Is the epitome of hypocrisy and our elected officials at the state. And if you feel that the House can't do anything because they feel that it's going to be, their hands are tied already, then we will find somebody who can. It doesn't make sense that you throw your arms up in the air to the fact that it's already in the budget. We can't do anything about it. Contact your senators. How about we contact our new House representatives that can? What happened to home rule? What happened to the folks of us trying to dictate what we can do on our own level and not being dictated by the state? That's what I have to say. It doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't make sense to anybody that has seen what the details present. So, good comments. All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Let's move on. Public safety, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Safety Committee met Monday, February 10th. myself and Councilman Carroll in attendance. Councilman Burgess was excused because of her recuperation process. Glad to see that she's here tonight. Under old business, we discussed the additional staffing at Station 2, which we acted upon in the Ways and Means Committee meeting. We got an update on the wayfinding signs and beach access parking. And there was a meeting scheduled between the city staff and Stantec. At this point, I can tell you Stantec has measured all the roads on the island to determine the width. And the next step is to superimpose the map of obstructions in the right-of-way so they can get a good idea of what would fit where. Contract for phases 3 and 4 have been awarded, and Stantec has indicated they will present a proposal quite soon. We discussed ordinances 2014-1, 2014-2, which are related to signage and parking. The Planning Commission's original recommendation was rather a broad loosening of the law for the commercial district, while continuing to restrict vehicle signage in the residential district. Since an amendment to the code seemed to be forthcoming, the building department has been looking at enforcing codes. Both the Planning Commission and the Public Safety Committee agree that if an ordinance change occurs, there should be text added to the change clarifying an existing long-standing sign, like the Simmons Seafood truck would be grandfathered in, and the sign were to be replaced or the vehicle went away. The sign would need to conform to the new city code. And we talked about this. I'm very concerned about unintended consequences. So we've planning administrator and Chief Buchanan will discuss the proposed ordinance and its enforcement with an eye towards those unintended consequences. And as such, we recommended that the first version of the amendment be reconsidered by the Planning Commission for the committee to discuss in the future. I want to make sure it's right the first time out. Under new business, Bobby Ross, representing the Windjammers, claimed 2014 will be the third year that has sponsored the beach volleyball league for girls between the ages of 12 and 18. The spring league will run between April 1st through May 28th, and the summer league will run from June 4th through July 30th. The liability is covered. Each player is paying $15 towards their insurance. Linda, I'm sure you get all that information from them, making sure they're properly insured. So I would make a motion that we allow the Windjammer to sponsor the girls' spring and summer beach volleyball leagues.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? This has proven to be useful. The last couple of years, they've held these. I've had no complaints. I don't think the police have had any complaints. So more power to them. Keep it up. Any other points? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. We talked about the traffic counters, which we also just approved in the Ways and Means Committee meeting. We talked about reports in pursuit of grants. The Municipal Association of South Carolina routinely sends out notices of grants that are available, and thought council should be that we are sometimes unaware that these things come through. We suggested that information on grants might be a good addition to our monthly departmental reports. Some of the things come through so quick we don't see them before they're going. This way we'll have kind of a running tally on what we were looking for. And also Battalion Chief Smith indicated the fire department also applies for grants periodically throughout the year, and that will be included on their report also. we reviewed the revenue projections for fiscal year 15, which we discussed in Ways and Means. Consideration of employees of the month. We had a memo from Captain Usry and Chief Buchanan recommending P.F. Storm, PFC Maloney, and Sergeant Thompson for employees of the month for their professionalism and dedication to duty upon discovering a burglary in process, capturing the subject, and recovering all of the stolen goods in November. And I have a memo attached to our minutes. Patrolman's Bacon's Patrol knew that the homeowner was out of town, noticed someone was in the house, called for backup, and they were able to apprehend the suspect. Highlights of departmental reports. Not to be left out, the fire department also received a very nice letter. I'll read in part. This comes from our very own Judge Michael Maloney, who had a fire at his home. In the letter, he stated in part, "The swift action prevented more significant damage to our house. I'm also thankful that Battalion Chief Smith followed up with me regarding the fire and took the time to offer some assistance." And personnel has the employee. I won't take that away from Sandy. I'll go over the fire department and police department monthly report. These will be short. Fire department personnel responded to 68 calls in the month of January. 30 of those were EMS calls. They also responded to 3 structure fires in the month, and he announced that, this was Battalion Chief Smith, that the fire department personnel will participate in the Carolina Children's Charities in March. The exact date is yet to be determined. So if you see those folks at the street corners, we have tried to get out a week ahead of the other departments. So give the money to our guys while you're still on the island, and then if you feel like giving it to the other guys, that would be nice too. Police department report. We had a fraud in that someone put on vacation for rent by owner a house. Person sent the money in only to find out that that person didn't really own the rental house. So beware if you are thinking of renting a house. During the month of January, officers issued 6 you could have been victim of the crime notices, and 7 business check notices where officers found open doors or windows. In the area of community service, 2 officers attended the training seminar for the Coffee with the COP program that the department will initiate this month. In January, dispatchers responded to 4,699 calls. Of those, 3,241 for the police department. They made 294 traffic stops that generated 65 tickets. In addition, the department made 29 arrests. In January, there was 1 noise complaint. And the police department is fully staffed at this point. I'll briefly say this in miscellaneous business. Streets that are going to be resurfaced with CPC funds: 53rd Avenue, 55th Avenue, 56th Avenue, 57th Avenue, Loudon Street, and Palm Boulevard. Palm Boulevard will not be done until after they finish.
Be specific, 41st to 57th.
A
41st to 57th.
portion of Palm.
Portion of it. Okay, that's a portion. Will not be done until the water department is finished digging up, because there's no use paving and then digging. And we have another letter of appreciation from the neighbor of the family who experienced the house fire. Stated quick action certainly helped avoid a major house fire. I watched the firemen team work very hard and professionally on an extremely cold winter night, keeping the fire from spreading.
The residents of the Isle of Palm should be very pleased knowing we have a great fire department protecting our community. Our next meeting is Monday, March 2nd at 9 a.m.
Very good. Any questions for public safety? All right, Public Works did not have a meeting as a result of the cold and the bitter, et cetera. I do have a question, though. Do we have a hazardous material pickup date, shredding date? Are we going to have one?
It's just not scheduled yet.
For those, Donnie's nodding his head. No, we don't have a date yet, but yes, we will have one.
It's not here.
Let us know whenever that date comes together. I know people are already, I won't say they're anxious, but they're already asking. So. Recreation Committee, please.
Recreation, even with cold weather, we met. On February the 10th. We had no citizens' comments. Director Page gave her report, and both adult and youth sports are coming to an end for the wintertime, and we are actively registering kids and adults for the springtime events. Also in our basketball department, Isle of Palms is going to host a 9 to 14 basketball tournament with our All-Stars from our island and across Charleston, so that would be a big thing to come down and watch. Baseball registration is going very well. We've got between 170 and 180 participants already signed up. For the springtime weather coming up, we've got voter registration with the DNR, both in March and April. Teenagers always remains active. Again, the Recreation Department covers everything from youth to teenagers. The dances we've held, January 10th drew 311 students. And the last one, I just asked Norma Jean beforehand, it was well over 300. So again, if you want some excitement, go down and watch those dances. Schools out activities continue to be well attended. The department does a great job when school are out for different days. The weather was less than perfect for our doggy days, but we still had a big event. We had 84 participants. Again, on these contests, I don't think any of us need to be judges because everybody's dog is beautiful.
You can't win. You can't win being good.
Replacing the Blues Bash this weekend is the Island Gras. And for everybody, please come out. It's Saturday from 12 until 4. We've got music, Elizabeth Covington, starting at 12 o'clock, and then Weird Science. I don't think I really know them, but they will be playing starting at 2 o'clock.
Is this something like the Mardi Gras?
No, this is Island Gras.
But it has a flavor of Mardi Gras?
Oh, it has the flavor of some
good,
beads.
good. I can wear my beads?
You were just waiting. You were setting me up on that one.
I can wear my beads?
You did bring those for everybody, right? Yes, you can wear your
You'll be able to
beads.
see me in the crowd, won't you?
Other entertainment besides the mayor. Jump castles, photo booth, climbing wall, balloon artists, buzz, and just vendors, restaurants, everything. So please come out to that this Saturday.
Come properly dressed, of course.
Properly dressed with beads.
Hats and beads.
And again, I'm sure we're going to find those kind of beads there, right?
I'd say I may even have to add a few. I mean, you don't know.
Other upcoming events, St. Patty's Craft on Thursday, March the 13th. Excellent Craft on April the 17th. And of course, the annual Easter egg hunt on Saturday, April 19th. Come early because it's over early. Those kids go through there like fast. Harley Norton returned back from maternity leave. Our fill-in person, Laura Tagami, has no sooner she finished with one than she's filling in for another. Carrie had her baby. Carrie had a baby girl on February 16th, 6.8 pounds, and her name is Lana Farrell Sedano. So again, congratulations. Watch out for the recreation center and
Well,
don't drink the water.
gotta be the water.
We also discussed some vandalism that was put in the Island Eye News at the rec center. It was discussed more because of a question I had, and I was told that this is something that happens on a frequent basis at our recreation center. It's not anything for us to be really worried about. It got in the paper more because the editor of the Island Eye News loves our doggy park, takes his dog to the doggy park, and he just happened to see us repairing it. So it's nothing for us to be worried about. We also reviewed the revenue projections. We talked about everything we've discussed on our different committees. We talked about registration fees on the community and stuff, but right now, no changes are being made for that. The other thing is the recreation pay is not really a money-making operation. It's the center of the community. We do it, again, for all ages. No miscellaneous business, and our next meeting is on March the 3rd.
Excellent.
And beads this weekend.
Days this weekend, good. All right, any questions for Rec? All right, Personnel Committee, please. Sandy.
The regular meeting of the Personnel Committee was held at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, February 11th. City Clerk Copeland reported that a quorum was present to conduct business. Our first motion to approve the minutes after one correction was submitted by Councilman Harrington, and it passed unanimously. There were no citizens' comments. Under old business, we had a lengthy discussion of the calendar year 2014 city administrators' performance goals. And each of you should have a copy of the approved goals in your packets. At this time, I would like to move to recommend the approval of the city administrators' performance goals for 2014 as presented, to keep the percentages as they were in 2013, and to evaluate her financial goals based on 3% under the FY14 budget as it was originally approved.
A motion, do I have a second? Motion and seconded, any discussion? We do?
Yes.
Okay, Jimmy?
We're going to be analyzing this for the next year, right?
Yes.
We're going to do further study on this, right? I'll be very interested to see when it comes out of committee.
Yes, the Personnel Committee will, in fact, start at our next meeting at looking at new forms that must be used because the ones we have now are not supported by our computer system, but also look at the whole process. It's been about 8 or 10 years since the process has been looked at, so this is a good time for us to review the whole process.
Because the council's evaluation counts for 15%, right? So each one of us that fills out that accounts 1.64% out of 100. So we spend, we go through that process, and it just seems like it's weighted in favor of something we have no way to measure. So I'm concerned with that.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay. Patrick?
One thing that I would recommend in terms of transparency and certainly to be helpful in the process is that the council have more input into, based on their conversations with the citizens, and that we can help Ms. Tucker or the administrator help develop some goals with council member input.
Okay, good. Michael?
I guess what I'd like to do is for the personnel goal. Linda, what was the goal for you last year?
Last year was the first year that we did the narratives for the budget. Because we were trying to work each year to make the budget a little more user-friendly for our citizens who might just want to read a narrative about the basic things. And so we did it for the first time last year. This year, I'd like to do it again and refine it a little bit more, but it is basically the same process.
I'd like to see something. That doesn't seem like a challenge. Okay, it's something
It's a challenge.
You do a great job and you do that day, but I'd like to see something more that's going to reach out to the community and identify some things that could be done. Example, noise complaints. Okay, are you reviewing those on a regular basis with the police department? Example, we had 192 complaints and 12 citations for the whole year. That's only 9%, and that's pretty low in my estimation, because that means that a lot of people have been calling in complaints about noise, and nobody wants to be woken up in the middle of the night or have a problem with a neighbor or a rental house, or they're just a regular resident. And so, I mean, examples like that where I'd like to see more involvement as far as where you're reporting back to council about things that, mean something to the residents. The narrative is great. I think it was good, but if you did it last year, to just do a little bit more this year, to me, that's not a challenge enough. And, I'd like to see more of a stretch where you're getting more involved and taking the time, by saying maybe riding with say, Donnie, as far as looking at, how are we doing in the middle of the summer with the rollout carts and analyzing, or how are we doing with those dump stations, which people just have a tendency to, throw all their stuff on an empty lot, that kind of thing. So and things that will really have a direct benefit to the residents, and I'd like to see more of that.
I suggest you provide your input to the Personnel Committee. That's their
Mr. Mayor, I
purpose
think
this year.
we discussed this at the Personnel Committee, and we had some other suggestions, but we're already into February of this year. And so, in deference to the fact that these goals have to be completed by December, we felt that as part of our review of next year, that these are the sorts of things that we should bring forward. But we didn't know that we could actually change them in this year, and to have them actually completed by December. That was the reason why we didn't make any changes. And some of the discussion was on the percentages, the fact that one portion is 85% and the other is 15%. So we did have some of that discussion, but the vote was 2-1 that we would complete this year as it is, but immediately started our next meeting at looking at all of these things. And we hope that the council members will in fact, send us those suggestions so that as we go forward, we can make it more island intensive rather than just moving forward.
Mr. Mayor.
Billy?
I look at these different goals and stuff. Number one, I do love the narratives. I think that helps me a great deal, and I thank you for that. But I look at some of the other department goals, the random acts of kindness, the coffee with the cop, which I guess is going to replace the neighborhood, because I didn't think that went well. I thought it was kind of a poor use of our police department's time. I went to probably 3 out of the 5 of them, and I think we could go to the rec center and hit the soccer games and basketball games and probably get a lot of response. But again, for Linda's sake, I'm not sure that's a good goal for those kind of things. But we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Can we not look at some of the other communities and how they evaluate their administrators and stuff? Just
Yes,
more
we will be doing
curiosity.
that. We will be doing that going forward. And again, the reason we didn't do it for tonight's meeting is that the time span. To try to bring something that was fully fleshed out by this meeting would not be possible.
Okay. Very good. Any other comments?
Just one thing, I'd hope that Linda does a great job up here. And I heard the idea of her riding along with Donnie to see which trash cans are full. I mean, there's a point between managing the city and doing the city's work. I mean, obviously, she has a great team of, department heads, and she relies on those folks to report back to her on that. And that's where that needs to take place at. I don't want to get to a point where we're actually asking the administrator to micromanage our department heads. And I hope we stay steer of that.
Good. All right, let's move on. Well, we're not done. We need a vote. Approval. We've had a motion and a second. Discussed. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay. We then moved on to the beginnings of a discussion on citywide mechanic versus contracted services. We are in the very early stages of investigating the financial pros and cons of an in-house mechanic. We've asked for additional information regarding the value of our fleet, island-wide mechanical needs, and the possible return on our investment for our next meeting. So again, I reiterate, we are in the very early stages of looking at this. Another discussion was on the wage ranges by position. We feel that in order to be competitive in the local job market, the Personnel Committee has embarked on a citywide investigation of current wage ranges and how we compare to other municipalities. Again, we are in the early stages of this investigation, but feel we need to be proactive. Additional information and research is needed before we can actually bring something before council. Just as the other committees, we reviewed the projections and discussed various revenue stream increases presented by staff, which could be considered, if needed, as information. We had the consideration of the Employee of the Month of Russell Roper, which we'll cover in a few minutes. Under miscellaneous business, we had a short conversation regarding the positive insights of the MASC meeting and the Elected Officials Institute. We had very good feedback from the Institute, from Patrick and I, being brand new to the process. It was good for us to be able to have that information at a state level. Our next meeting is 10 a.m. on Thursday, March 6th. We had no executive session. Councilman Batelli moved to adjourn the meeting at 11:55, and it was passed unanimously. Our employees of the month are Russell Roper of the Public Works Department, PFC Storin, PFC Maloney, and Sergeant Thompson of the Police Department. Again, we congratulate both of those, in all four of those, in terms of going above and beyond what their job descriptions hold. And that's the part of the island that we sometimes take for granted, that our police and our firemen really go beyond what we ask them. Safety Sweepstakes winners in the Building Department, Rhonda Gibbons. Police Department, Chad King. Public Works, Willie Powell. Fire Department, David Mello. And just for our staff vacancies, right now we have none in general government. In the fire department, we had one vacancy, but now that we've passed the 3 additional fire, we now have 4 vacancies, and they will start to look for those. Under the police department, we have no vacancies, but we are in the process of hiring 6 BSOs for the summer. Building, no vacancies. Public Works, no vacancies. And Recreation Department, no vacancies.
Okay. Any questions for personnel?
One quick question. On the fire department, on the 4 personnel, do we have a list of applicants?
You didn't know enough?
Might be able to. Yeah, well, just so I can get on. We advertised on the website for several weeks, and Chief Graham just asked me to take that advertisement down because she's got a sufficient candidate pool for that one. So she has a pool of applicants that she feels is adequate enough to start her process.
For all 4?
No,
just one?
No, what she remarked to me is, depending on the outcome of tonight's meeting, I might have to put it back on the website. But
Okay.
so at the time, she was just thinking of the one because that was all that was approved.
Thank you.
And just as information, back in July of 2012, the mayor and I were asked to be interviewed by a young lady who said that she was going to be writing an article for Coastal Living. Well, it just came out. So it took from July of 2012 to now, but there's a very nice article about the Isle of Palms. So it's free advertising for us. It's the March edition of Coastal Living.
And I think doesn't it call us a dream town?
Yes, it calls us a dream town.
That's better than
So you want to live in Isle of Palms, which is
Can
very
we
nice.
put that on the signboard?
Along with your picture. Right now.
Well, we might have to use that phrase. Although that may mean a sleepy town.
You have to watch
Let's
what
be
we do.
careful about the unintended consequences. We've had that.
Wearing those beads, I don't think we'll have any unintended consequences.
All right, let's go on to real property.
I got one question. Mayor.
Please.
No, we've had a number of new folks join the city staff, and I wasn't sure when we were going to actually get them to roll through swearing in. If that was coming up soon. I've seen a lot of new police officers on the road.
They wait till they come back from
The academy.
academy.
Okay.
And we've just gotten 2 back there.
Next
And then we've got another one coming back next month, so they'll be coming up soon.
Okay, thank you. Now we move on.
Thank you, Mayor. Real Property met February 4th. Councilman Loftus Mecano was present. Councilman Bergwick, Councilperson Bergwick was excused for other reasons. She's meant you well. On the marina tenants report, Jay Clark from Morgan Creek Grill asked that the city hire an engineering group to advise the marina tenants on parking lot improvements and new lighting. This is the first time the committee had heard the request as far as hiring an outside consultant. Administrator Tucker was going to review the information and get a report back to the committee. Under old business, Sea Cabins Pier, Administrator Tucker was reaching out to Sea Cabins to see if they were interested in selling the pier, which is the first step of any action that would be taken by the city or the county or whatever. As far as electrical service for the water sports dock, John Schaefer updated the committee, and South Carolina Electric and Gas plans to supply power for the docks. Also reviewing underground power in the future. There was an update for the RFP, which we already voted and approved upon, so moving on with that. We reviewed the budget revenues for the 2015 budget, including options for increasing fees for business license, South Carolina fees, and Comcast fees. Under new business, bids were taken for the water sports dock renovation. 2 companies were interested in the bid, and only 1 bid came in. And we already voted on, the committee voted for $62,800 for renovations for the new gang plant, which we approved. Under miscellaneous business, marina tenants report, all businesses were current, with the exception of 1 tenant who earned $20,000 due to an additional rent provision, and the tenant is expected to be current by the end of April. The next meeting is set for Wednesday, March 5th at 5:30.
Beautiful. All right, any questions for real property? Good.
Well, just concerning the fishing pier. Reaching out to Sea Cabins fishing pier. Is that something that's, I mean, I look at, the real estate, there's really no real estate. The parking is almost non-existent. And the maintenance, I'm throwing these kind of thought patterns out there, knowing what we are faced with at the 41st Street Marina, and looking at a pier that's got some age on it. So anyway,
This is a question that Councilman Ward had asked the committee to look into and review.
Okay.
And we're in that process.
Okay.
But all those things have to be satisfied before we...
Of course.
And more, before we proceed on in any... I mean, I'm not sure if it came free would be interested.
Yeah.
There's a cost.
And the streets.
Well, yes, okay, we're back to that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, please?
Yes.
Oh, Jim.
I reached out to Tom O'Rourke from the Park and Recreation Department over at Charleston County last week. He called me today and about the piers, and we talked about the Folly Beach pier that would be last year after $400,000 on the Folly. Problem is with these piers is that they have these salts that bore into the pilings. And he said that he personally wouldn't even walk on that pier. Spend $30,000 a year inspecting that pier at Folly Beach. They spend over $400,000 a year this last year replacing 38 of the pilings because they look sturdy, they look fine. This thing is never inspected. And he said he personally, he wouldn't even walk on it. He said, we might be interested in it if we could tear it down. But that's the problem. If I'm very interested in this project, but it's once you get into finding out the real facts, it's if the Sea Cabins wanted to sell it, and they would, I'm not a part of the management there or anything, but if they knew all of this stuff, he said they would unload it in a second because it's very expensive to keep it up. And a lot of these hurricanes that come up and down the coast, especially in North Carolina, the storm knocks a lot of the piers down, but it's because they're so deteriorated. But you really can't tell because they have to have divers go down every year and inspect them, and they got to replace pilings every year. So it's much more complicated issue than just do we want to buy the pier. I told them we didn't want to buy it, but that was my question, if they wanted to buy it. So that's my update on
Does the
that.
state have any type of inspection program for anything like that, you know, or?
I don't think so.
I'm not aware of one.
Because that's kind of interesting, because you think about, there's different businesses who have had, one of the things like, Bobby Ross, he had to go out and replace a majority of his deck because for commercial purposes. Even though this is a private entity, they had a lot of commercial use to it. I think about a number of the, commercial businesses who have had decks, who have collapsed under certain stresses, under pressures, who are under a lot of litigation. And I was wondering if the state, OCRM, or
I don't know of any, and I would think it's the insurance, if they carry insurance on them.
Yeah.
They're the ones that would drive some inspection and validation, because no insurance company is going to take on a liability of a weakened structure like that. And it may have been Bobby's insurance company that said, hey, you haven't, you need to recertify for us every so many years, the integrity of the decking. I don't know.
It's interesting. I mean, the fact that the city can be sued for, or he'll be liable for certain manhole covers or plumbing, certain going on, makes you wonder, because it's part of the city property. It's under our management, within our jurisdiction. How we would, I know, if anything were to happen, we would be named in anything. So it'd be curious to see if we could do any legwork on that, just to see what type of.
I'd like to see the personnel committee, not personnel, excuse me, real property committee consider looking at this about the inspection. I mean, his words were alarming to me, because we have fireworks displays out there. I've never been out there before.
We put hundreds of pounds in people.
Yeah, let's make sure that this thing is safe before we go out there next year, It's a real... He was pretty scary about it. He said, I wouldn't walk on it, Jimmy.
I would think that in investigation with insurance companies, I think of all of the individual residence docs that I see. It would be the same thing would apply to them as it would to the pier, and I don't see massive repair work on the piers that I've seen.
We're repairing one at the marina right now for $64,000.
Maybe, Jimmy,
I
you
think
might
personally, it costs a lot of money to maintain. Both the marina and my house is, it's constant.
However, to Patrick's point, was it your own initiative, or did your insurance company say, hey, you need to bring this up to a certain standard?
It was my own initiative.
Right. So,
Are you affected by these worms, Jimmy?
Yes.
Saltwater
Yes.
worms? That's the first I've heard of them, but.
Even though you've got CCA treated wood, it gets out there.
It's conceivable that a residential property, the insurance, doesn't deal with it, but on a commercial property, insurance has to worry about all of the structure and integrity.
And most of the seawalls are made out of treated lumber, correct?
Yeah, we have had to deal with the worms issue on a city bulkhead before.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Now we're into worms. We're going downhill.
Beets and worms.
No other comments from real property? All right, let's move on. You have reports from the Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission.
No, he
Planning Commission? So he didn't
head of the PRD.
He'll be forthcoming.
The budget.
No other items, bills, et cetera. Under miscellaneous, we do have the MS Challenge Run coming up this weekend, the 28th to the 2nd. This is, I think, the third year. And they come, they go, they barely leave a footprint on there. And they have a great time while they're here, and I hope the weather works for them, and hopefully they can make it to the island. We should give them an invitation. All right, our next meeting is on the 7th, March 18th, following at 7 p.m., excuse me. On the 18th, following our Ways and Means meeting, I'd like to have a motion to go into executive session to receive legal advice related to potential claims.
So moved.
Second. Safety. Motion and seconded. All in favor of executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're in executive session. Thank you all.
Blah, blah, blah.